Hello, everyone. I'm Fred Cook. Welcome to PR Future. In this episode, we're going to do something a little different. As part of the USC's PRISM program, my colleague, Burghardt Tenderich, sat down with Pilaar Terry. Pilaar is many things. She's a USC alum. She's a founder, managing partner of the POV Agency, and a recent executive in residence here at Annenberg. Their conversation covers a wide range of topics, including how to start out in the industry, how she struck out on her own to build her own agency, and the importance of relationships. It's really a fascinating conversation. So here is BT talking with Pilaar Terry. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is my pleasure and my honor to introduce this month's guest of honor, Pilaar Terry. Pilaar, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's also so weird seeing me on camera like so often. So thanks for sitting through that, y'all. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we thought, as you all could see a minute ago, it'd be best to introduce Pilaar via this video that was put together just recently based on her being the executive and residence at Annenberg last semester, and we're now glad to have her here in our virtual environment. I wanted to read the first sentence from her Annenberg page because I love it. Pilaar Terry is a managing partner for POV Agency, a boutique strategic communications agency that reimagines how PR and comms are done and who it's done by to better resonate with an ever-evolving culture. This is a great sentence, and it triggers my first question to you, Pilaar. If you would please speak about the notion of reimagining how PR is done.
Sure. I would love to start there. Take a journey with me back 20 years to when I was graduating from Annenberg and I was just starting my career in PR. And I want to address first, like reimagining like who PR is done by, because I think that's something that we absolutely live every day at POV Agency. I'm really proud to share that my agency is like 95% diverse folks coming from like different backgrounds and different lived experiences. And that kind of happened organically. When I first started my career and when I was at Annenberg, the people that were in the PR classes or the journalism classes, it was pretty homogenous, you guys. I was actually like shaken to my core in a good way when I came back on campus to be executive in residence and seeing the students that were populating the program. It was everybody from everywhere. And that made me so happy because when I was back at SC, oh my gosh, so long ago, it looked a lot different. It was very much same. It was all, people who could afford to start a career in an environment and a landscape that didn't have a lot of money in it. So people who had like additional resources, who had additional support. You can imagine what those people looked like. They definitely did not look like me. So I kind of felt like an outlier. And then that continued into my career when I went to different agencies. I've been at Edelman, I've been at Fleischman Hillard, I've been at Bragman Nyman Caffarelli, the marketing arm, United Entertainment Group. And what I noticed while I was there was that I was usually one of one. I was one Black person, and I was one of the, well, I don't want to say the only women, because PR is definitely dominated by women right now, and it was back then. But what I gained from those experiences is that people were telling stories and people were coming at, campaign creation or even like making messaging or figuring out what a brand story was, all from the same lens. And it, for a while, did speak to the audiences that the brands that we represented were trying to connect with, but it slowly, there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect between the audiences that we were trying to reach and the people trying to tell stories to those audiences. And what I wanted to create at my agency was a place where like everybody could thrive. It does not matter where you look like, what you came from, what type of resources that you have, what you look like, what your experience was. There is a place for you at POV Agency, because we realize and we see the value and the superpower in our team looking like the audiences that we are trying to reach, because there are cultural nuances that our team is aware of, that the audience is definitely checking for, that some of those other teams might not be. So that kind of happened organically. I didn't set out to only hire people that looked like me or similar to me or may have had a different background, but it just happened that those were the best candidates. And that's something that I'm really proud of. So BT, to address your first question, reimagining like who it's done by is definitely making sure that you have the right storytellers on your team to reflect the needs, the wants, the cultural preferences, the cultural nuances, the cultural intelligence of the audience that you're trying to reach. So that's the first part of the question. And then reimagining, how it's done. Again, going back 20 years to when I started, PR was very much like you write a press release, you put it over the wire, and you hope for the best. Maybe VT's nodding his head. Maybe you do some like spot pitching with like some friendlies. Maybe you do like one pay for play opportunity, but it was really leaning into earned, and it was really leaning into earned in a way, in my experience, that I didn't find especially strategic. There was no opportunity for relationship building in it, or there was very small opportunity for relationship building. And it was a lot harder to be impactful because everybody was putting a press release over the wire. Everybody was doing a satellite media tour. Everybody was like kind of pulling from the same toolbox and using the same tactics to tell stories over and over and over again. And what's happening now, and I'm sure you guys are all seeing this, is that the landscape is changing. And I don't even want to say changing. I want to say like it's disintegrating pretty fast. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm always honest. BT knows this. It's tough out there right now. If you are just a straight up communications professional and you only do earned media and you only do media relations, you are going to have a hard time. What we have tried to do to combat this and also get ahead of this is kind of expand our offerings and bring in other experts with expertise, maybe in areas that like we've leaned into, but not necessarily like have conquered per se, to expand like what we offer to our clients. There's so many ways to do brand storytelling or organization storytelling or just storytelling on behalf of talent that you represent. There's so many ways to do it. It's not just a spray and pray pitch anymore. It's definitely a lot of relationship building, a lot of research, but there's so many different levers to pull within the marketing toolbox. Social obviously is massive. Digital is massive. Content creation has definitely taken a front seat in a way that it hasn't done before. Leaning into paid sometimes when that makes sense. So we really use all of those tools in our toolkit, but we also bring in some other stuff that's like wild and wacky, but is a strategic move in efforts to be impactful with the stories that we're telling. So it looks different in the people that are doing this business now. And it also looks different in the way that we're actually doing the business because the landscape is changing so incredibly much, so incredibly fast. It feels like it's like very, very slowly and then all at once. And it's like, oh my God, we need to be prepared for what's going to come next, what we think is going to come next. And so that's how we're trying to navigate this every single day.
I could not agree more with you. I feel super excited being in this industry in this point in time because of everything you're just saying. This massive change. I keep telling our students, the only constant in your career is going to be change.
Absolutely.
And that's just a lot of fun, and especially along the vectors that you're just talking about. Would be great if you could maybe share with us an example or two of how this change manifests itself in the client work you do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I've got two case studies. I'm going to talk about the Black Founders Matter Fund first, and then I'll get to that case study that you were very excited about, BT. So the Black Founders Matter Fund is a VC fund that is really dedicated to raising funds and resources for Black and diverse founders. That's what they do. They're a venture capital fund. They get in money and they give it to founders in their portfolio. And so a client approached us, I want to say last year, maybe the year before last year. Time is a riddle and it all bleeds together. I don't even know what day it is. But this client approached us and they were like, we want 5 press releases because we've got this news coming out over this timeline. And so we were like, okay, well, that seems pretty easy. We can do that for you. And then once we got under the hood and realized like what amazing stories that were to be told, not just about the fund and the founders that it was funding, but also like how the fund is like run and managed. It was all women of color, which is incredibly rare in the VC space. It was also the amount of like community work that this person was doing. And we just thought there's more here than just honestly 5 whack press releases. What else can we do to really raise the profile so that the general manager of the fund could go out into the world and have like this credibility already built behind her? So we were like, look, we'll do the 5 press releases for you, but we also recommend Thought leadership. Have you thought about doing speaking opportunities? Have you thought about doing judging opportunities? Have you thought about mentorship with different organizations and people who are looking to get into the VC space, especially those who are people of color who never thought that they could tap into something like that? Have you thought about a campaign like that? And they hadn't. So we took something that was just going to be 5 press releases over 6 months and turned that into an 18-month-long thought leadership campaign where, yes, we got the editorial. Yeah, we still wrote the press releases, but it was really about getting her into the right rooms to talk about Black Founders Matter Fund and also having her meet with the right people. So it wasn't necessarily like traditional PR and that like we had a pitch and we pitched it out and we got editorial and everybody was happy. It was more about like, let us connect you to people in our network that can help move the needle for you when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to visibility. And over that 18 months, I think that the GM said no less than like 10 times how we changed the fund's like life and how we really got them credibility that they wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else, even if we had just done those 5 press releases. So that's just one case study about just approaching something differently. The client definitely comes to you with, hey, I think this is what I want, but that's only based off of like their knowledge of communications. And more often than not, their knowledge of communications is like this big, right? And you're an expert in it. You're getting your master's, or you've been a working professional for a few years, and you know that like this much is only going to move the needle this much. So what else can you add to really make what you're doing impactful? And sometimes that's going off the beaten path and just setting up meetings for somebody, or getting them a speaking opportunity somewhere, or putting them on a podcast that they never thought, hey, this could actually speak to my audience. It's just really thinking, I hate this term, but it's accurate. It's really thinking outside the box. So that's my first case study. Any questions or add-ons to that, VT?
Yeah, no, to me, this is just an outstanding example of what we would call client leadership. The client comes to you with sort of, they know what they want the outcome to be, and they're kind of predicting the strategy, which is 5 press releases, and you're saying, sure, we'll give you what you want, but you're only scratching the surface. We're doing so much more. So I love this one. Really great.
Okay, cool. And then my second case study is about a company called Bitewell. Bitewell is definitely a startup. They are a food health tech brand, and they have been around only since 2020. And again, they came to us with like, hey, we need visibility, we need credibility, we need brand awareness. What can you do? Thinking that we were just going to go the straight editorial route. Again, we did not do that. I mean, we still did like the PR block and tackle with the press releases and the pitching around like specific client announcements. But we also looked at, okay, what are some of the experts on your team that we can tap into to be subject matter experts for things going on across the industry? So we added that layer on top of the, hey, we're doing client announcements and client news. And then it was, hey, have you thought about thought leadership? Hey, have you thought about, and we don't usually lean into paid. We really love to stay in like the earned space. But for the paid opportunities that came in that made sense, we were like, you know what? We do think that this is worth a $60,000 spend, or we do think that this is worth a $75,000 spend. And just through those little like asking questions and being in a collaborative partnership with our client who absolutely listens to counsel. That's another thing that's important to check for when you're looking at new client relationships. Are they going to be receptive to you, or do they just want a comms like waiter or waitress to like take orders and then go execute? That's not the type of partners that we consider ourselves to be. So over the course of our time working with them, we became so embedded in their marketing strategy. We became embedded in like how they're actually building their product. We became basically, we have a seat at the table. And I think BT, you said it best. We are higher up in the comms chain or the execution chain than just like, hey, we figured out this idea. We need you to execute it and get us some press on this. It's, we're thinking of some ideas. Can you help us ideate so that there is an editorial lens, so that there is a content lens, so that we can extend it across digital and social? How can we make ideas and create campaigns that are more holistic in view in the type of results that we want and the impact that we're getting to make? And I think that it was really crystallized when just maybe a month ago, our client actually asked us to help them search for a chief medical officer. By the way, I am not a doctor. I am not a food health tech expert by any means, But what they were coming to us for was like, we have an idea of a person that we want to sit on our senior leadership. And we think that we know what we want them to do from from like a business strategy perspective, but we also know that this is a tool for PR and it's a tool for comms. So we actually want you to be a part of this process because you're going to be looking for things in these candidates that we are maybe not looking for. And we were able to influence, who they ended up going out to start communications around hiring for this role, which was pretty amazing. It's not something I've ever done before, but knowing that we were so trusted with this client that they were actually like, help us hire somebody to be on our senior leadership team. It just really made us feel like we were a huge part of the process. So that's my second case study. And those two examples are things that honestly would not have happened 5 years ago, 7 years ago, even 3 years ago. And this is new. I think that PR and comms and everything that you guys are learning right now is becoming just like higher up in the food chain. We're not at the end anymore and like kind of, this is what you have to work with, so go with it. We want you to have a seat at the table so that when we do get to the end, you have something that's actually marketable, that media is going to care about, that our audience is going to care about. And we know that we can't make that decision without you.
Again, this is a great case study. It falls into the category of choose your client wisely, which is exactly what you did. More often than not, agencies are kind of viewed as the get the busy work done people. And
Totally.
I've been in this industry first, of course, on the client side, on the agency side, and now in academia, but for a very long time. And everything you're saying registers. We really seem to be moving up the value chain. And the example that you gave of the agency being asked to identify a chief medical officer just talks about the strategic impact that you have with this client. And this is exactly where we collectively want to take all of our students and alums and enable them or encourage them to have this kind of rewarding career. In both case studies, you mentioned the notion of thought leadership, which is one of my favorite concepts in the world of PR. And when I talk about it in the classroom, students sometimes can look at me like, what is he talking about? So it's just in case some of the people on this webinar right now are having that same expression on their face, which I can't tell because we can't see you. How would you explain thought leadership to them?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Well, I think I would explain it as putting your client or their organization or their brand in a position to honestly lead thoughts. And how do you lead thoughts? You lead thoughts on being an expert on something. You lead thoughts in developing an expertise or like a niche that nobody else can speak to but you. And the way that you actually execute that is through positioning your clients as subject matter experts in different stories or editorial opportunities. You get them in front of an audience, you give them speaking opportunities to talk more in depth about their area of expertise or their niche that they're really passionate about. It's also putting them in opportunities, to be quite honest, to judge others. So I love, this is like one of our secret weapons. I love putting our clients on judging panels for massive industry awards, because not only do they get to see what's going on in the landscape and kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what other brands are doing or what their competition is doing, but they also are looked at as an expert because they only ask people to judge these things who have strong and deep knowledge about whatever it is they're judging. So we get people on the jury for Cannes, for the Reggie Awards, for Digiday. We work in the advertising and marketing space a lot. That's why I'm mentioning these publications and these organizations. But we do that a ton. It's really great low-hanging fruit. There's not a ton of work that you have to do as the comms professional. You kind of just set them up, make sure that they have enough time to judge different opportunities. And then we have them talk about it on LinkedIn. Tell your peers, hey, I am judging this cool thing. Look how cool I am. Look how smart I am. I'm an expert. Those are the types of things that I like. They're secret weapons. They're really easy. They're low-hanging fruit. But that positions you as a thought leader. You can comment on the work of others. You're a subject matter expert. You are comfortable speaking to different niche or topics that you're an expert in. And it gets to the point where media is now coming to us asking for your specific opinion because you've already proved your worth in that area as an expert. So you are leading thoughts as a thought leader.
So you just gave us an example of thought leadership by explaining thought leadership. Very meta. I like it a lot. It's excellent. And it's simply so much more than issuing a news release and talking to a journalist. Both are important, right? But it's so much more. Wonderful. So the people in this webinar either work in our industry or related industry, or they want to get into it. What kind of advice would you have for them with regard to the skills and aptitudes people need to succeed in this rapidly evolving world, formerly known as PR?
I actually took notes on this one because there's a lot. And what I think I want to emphasize first are the soft skills, okay? I'm going to say this to all of you, and I've said it to my team before, so this is not new. PR is not hard to do. It's not. It's literally not. It's very simple, like at its core and its practice, but it is hard to do well. And how do you do it well? I think I'm going to tell you. So having flexibility and adaptability, that is something, it's a soft skill that you can't learn. You're either able to roll the punches or you're not. I think if you're going into this profession or you're already in it, you probably already have a sense that like things change incredibly fast every single day. So being able to adapt when maybe your favorite friendly at a media outlet has just been let go because their newsroom was shut down because their ads weren't making enough money. Or maybe you had a story that was going to run on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but then a war broke out and your story was killed. You got to roll with that. Being flexible and adaptable is absolutely a necessity to be in this industry, and to always be thinking like a couple steps ahead. Well, if this happens, then this should happen. If this doesn't happen, I need to be ready with like options B, C, and D. Like always being ready to think a couple steps ahead and be prepared, but also be flexible when your plan falls to shit, because it's probably going to. Not every single time, but like there's going to be sometimes. So get ready for that. I also wanted to share that like you should have your own like secret sauce or recipe for content consumption. And what I mean by that is that as an elder millennial myself, I still enjoy like reading the actual paper and like print magazines. I do that. I like the feeling of it in my hands. But that's not the only place I get my news. I also get it from X, known as Twitter. I also get it from TikTok. I get it from LinkedIn. I get it from Facebook. Not a ton, but sometimes I get news from Facebook. And then there's a few websites that I go to absolutely daily to make sure that I'm up on what's happening in my industry, what's happening with my clients' industry. But I've come up with this like special mix or secret sauce around the content that I consume so that I can stay informed. Staying informed about what's going on in your industry, what's going on in your clients' industries could not be more important. There are so many things happening every single day. And to wrap your mind around all of them all at once is impossible. You wouldn't have enough time to do your job because you're consuming content to stay informed. But if you find like your little recipe of, okay, I'm going to check here, here, and here in the morning, and then I'm going to check here, here, and here in the afternoon, and then before I go to bed, I'm going to check here, here, and here, just so you can like speak knowledgeably about what's happening and also be able to navigate those spaces for your clients is incredibly important. So like having your own recipe of content consumption so that you can stay informed is also a necessity. One of the last thing is being malleable across different disciplines. So I started my career in PR, and it was just straight up earned media and comms. There was also some experiential in there, but that's all I did. That's it. And then as I moved through my career, I learned other skills. I learned marketing, I learned digital, I learned social. I will be the first to tell you I'm not an expert in any of those areas, but I have enough to be dangerous, and I have enough to counsel my clients with authority on those subjects. So even though it's not my bread and butter every day, yes, I can give you best practices for social. Yes, I can give you best practices for digital. Yes, we can weigh the pros and cons of like whether or not we should pursue this paid opportunity. Yes, we can talk about experiential. And if you put a gun to my head, yes, I can plan an event. I don't want to, but I can. So I think it's just being prepared to dabble in a few other things and not just be so stuck on one area of discipline or one practice is really important. I know people who I started my career with who 20 years in, they still do the same exact thing. And I'm seeing their opportunities get smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's to the point now where they're like, well, I don't think I can start in social because like I missed the first wave and I don't have enough time to pick it up. I've got kids, I've got a partner, I've got dogs. I don't know. People are busy. Dabbling in those areas throughout your career, even if it's not like where your passion is, and you know it's still a part of like the marketing toolkit and strategy is really, really, really important. And then I think facilitating different and diverse client relationships is also important. And what I mean by that is, so at POV, we work on retainer, but we also work on projects. And I feel like this business approach is helping us because I'm watching agencies that are kind of in our cohort who had like this one massive client that maybe paid them like $100,000 a month for retainer. And then when that client goes away, they're like, oh shit. And I don't ever want to be in that position. So we've definitely had clients that have had to take a pause, or we've gone our separate ways for whatever reason, or we've just completed the project and then it's time to move on to something else. And I found that because we have diversified how we service our clients and who we service and for how long, there's less of a, oh my gosh, we've got this gap to fill. Of course, that's only an agency thing that you would have to think about if you decided to go the agency route, but that is also important. And developing like really strong relationship with your clients. They are not, I don't want to say your best friends, but like it's really important that you develop a collaborative partnership with them, whether or not and if they stay at the company that you're servicing, wonderful, you've got a brand advocate on the inside. And if they go somewhere else and you still have a great relationship with them, well, now you've just opened the door to a potential new client, and that's fantastic. And the world of PR and marketing on the brand and agency side is so incestuous that having strong relationships, people are going to vouch for you, people are going to say your name in rooms that you're not in yourself physically, is incredibly important. So I think the last thing I want to leave you with is don't be an asshole, because those people are going to come back. And I've seen it happen. And it's not good when you in something acrimoniously, and then now that person is your new client, or that person is now your boss. So respect your own boundaries and keep your sense of self.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. I was on the phone with a former student just a few hours ago, as we have a tendency to keep in touch with our alumni, and she's been working for the last 3 years pretty much in media relations, and asked me whether she should branch out. And I said, I think you absolutely have to. You cannot be pigeonholed. And would you agree with that?
Absolutely agree with that. I was just talking about somebody who's been doing the same thing for 20 years. A really amazing sports PR practitioner that I've worked with a ton before. I absolutely respect his work ethic. I respect what he does. He's good at what he does. He gets results. However, the sports landscape is changing rapidly, like everything else. Sports focused outlets are closing down. Sports beats are being closed down at dailies and like weeklies. And he's like, I'm running out of people to pitch. I'm running out of places to place my stories. And it's not because I'm not good at my job or I don't have relationships. It's just that they don't exist anymore. And so he's kind of in the, what am I going to do now? Do I need to like pick up something completely new? I'm 20 years into my career, which is great, but not if you're doing it out of like desperation or you're trying to survive. It's great if like it's a, added value. But I found that his opportunities are drying up because that is all that he does.
Right.
So tell her to expand immediately and yesterday.
I agree. Continue to learn different things and step out of your comfort zone, which is a little bit of a stereotype to say, but I think it is still very much true. One of the questions that has come in, and there's several, but please, everybody continue to type. How do you balance creativity with meeting your clients' goals and objectives? That's a
Ooh,
great one.
that is a really good one. You know, if you have the right client, you don't have to choose one over the other, honestly. Let's say you don't have the right client. How do you balance creativity with meeting your client's goals and objectives? I think you can still be creative and meet their goals and objectives. You just have to show them why. Let's move forward with that. So I think having like open and honest lines of communication with your client can help you get to a place where you don't have to pick creativity over meeting goals. You can kind of make them match up together.
Excellent. Great. Another question here. How did you go about building your client base when starting out? You mentioned earlier how important it is to how important your personal brand in our industry is. So how did you get started there?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll try to give you the short answer to that. So I had an agency before joining POV Agency, and I was working that with a former colleague of mine. We became business partners, and we put the word out that we were working together. Things were going great for a couple of years. And then I decided to leave that company in that situation for a multitude of reasons. And I just put the word out, hey, I'm solo dolo. If you want to come work with me, please do so. And I think because going back to the advice I gave earlier, like don't be an asshole, I think that kind of just showed through. So people found out I'm working on my own, I'm taking on clients. People who I worked with before were like, oh my gosh, I know your work, I know your work ethic, I know the results that you're able to deliver. I want to work with you again. People just started coming back. That is the short answer, but the long answer to me getting my first paying client at my first agency that I started, my business partner and I used to call them YOLOs. And that is when we would just send a note to somebody on LinkedIn saying, hey, I like your brand. I like that you've done X, Y, and Z recently. I like this story about this. Like we just did our research about that brand. And it was brands that we were passionate about. And then at the end was like, you want to talk about PR? So the first paying client that we got was 6 months to the day that I got unemployment. And the day that my unemployment ran out, we signed our first paying client for $10,000 a month. And it was because of a YOLO. There was a brand that I had my eye on when I was at their biggest competitor. So I had a lot of background information on them. And I was like, hey, I used to work at your biggest competitor. I've had my eye on you for a while. I really like the way that you talk to the millennial audience. I really like the way that you approach this and you approach this. Would you be interested in having a talk with us about PR support? And they were, and we signed them. So it's a mix of, I have a reputation that's established in the industry, so people knew me and they wanted to work with me, but it's also, putting yourself out there and being willing to do some research and humble yourself and say, do you need help? I can help you. Please give me money to do so.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Really, the power of networking and your personal brand. This, at the end of the day, this is a small community. I still run into people a lot that I worked with literally decades ago, and I think this will continue. So it's incredibly important, right?
I was just at South by Southwest last week, and the amount of people that I ran into, like in the streets, that I had worked with before, they were a client. It was astounding. And I was walking around thinking, like, I'm so glad that I was nice to these people because they want to see me in the street. They want to stop me. They want to say, like, hey, I've seen you on LinkedIn doing X, Y, and Z. Hit me up when you get back from Austin because I want to talk to you about some business. It's all about the way that you move through this industry.
Yeah, and it feels to me like we collectively as a culture have lost a little bit of that skill during COVID when we were unable to go anywhere. Cool places like South by Southwest. And this is something that my students now ask me and my colleagues a lot. It's like, how do I network? How do I get started? And I tell them, go to events. So going out there, sharing with other people what you're interested in, it strikes me as really important. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would absolutely agree with that. And in addition to going to things and like being physically present and being in people's faces, I think it's also being like, and this goes back to like your recipe of content consumption. There are reporters and journalists that I follow on X specifically because I want to pitch them something later. I don't know when, but I'm like, I want to get into that person. So I'm going to follow their tweets. I'm going to respond to them. I'm going to like join in the conversation. I'm going to send people emails like, hey, I really liked your story on X, Y, and Z. I don't have a pitch for you. I just want to tell you, like, I appreciate your work. So it's starting relationships literally from scratch by, again, putting yourself out there, but putting yourself out there with like meat behind it. I read this, I saw this, I enjoyed this. Thank you for this. Journalists love that. They love to know that like people are reading their work or watching their work and like are actually appreciating it. That gets you in the door each and every time. Flattery will get you a long way, but also just paying attention. Just pay attention. One of the strongest media relationships I have now, and I get a ton of incoming from her, is because I followed her on Twitter for 2 years, commenting on her stuff, just trying to get her to like read one of my pitches because I was pitching at the same time, pitching, tweeting, pitching, tweeting. And that's turned into, I think I get hit up, I want to say like once or twice a month from this publication, looking for subject matter experts, looking for thought leaders for the things that she's working on. And that was because I humbled myself and was just very, very thirsty on Twitter.
Yeah, but also genuinely interested, right? So you followed a person, a journalist who spoke to you in some shape or form, and people pick up on that. You've kind of preempted one of the questions I was going to ask. How do you approach developing relationships with journalists and media outlets? And this is one great example you just gave us, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just reading what they write and watching the work that they produce and commenting on it is a wonderful way to start because it shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you are actually invested in like building a relationship with them. One of the things I really like to do is like, so-and-so, can I have 10 minutes of your time? I would love to get information on what you're passionate about writing about. I know you have your beat, but like what was in that beat do you really, really care about? And then how do you like to be pitched? When do you like to be pitched? How can I be a resource for you? Ending any email with how can I be a resource for you has been like 90% open rate. I mean, response rate when I send emails like that. And I encourage our team to do that too. Just say hello. Just say thank you. Just say I liked that. That is a way to get your foot in the door.
Wonderful, thank you. One maybe final question that I have for you. In all our degree programs in the public relations and advertising world at USC Annenberg, we require students to take a course in business and economic foundations. And many of our students kind of self-identify as not being interested in the world of business and econ. And we share with them, this is an area you need to know a lot about. And I was wondering what your take is on that.
If you would have asked me this question while I was at Annenberg, I would have been of the same mindset. I don't want to know about that. That's why I'm in comms. Ew, gross.
Right.
That over there. But now that I've been doing this for a minute and I'm also running my own company, it is important to know context. And that is the kind of thing that you'll learn in those classes. So if a recession is looming, as it has been for like 5 years or something, if a recession is looming, you need to know how that's going to impact your business and why, and what areas of your business it's going to impact. Whether you are at a brand or at an agency, you still need to know the implications of that. The same thing with like world events and world affairs going on. Everything trickles down. So you might be like, why is the war in Ukraine? What does that have anything to do with this beauty brand that I'm trying to pitch? There's a connectivity there that like if people are thinking about this, then they're probably less likely to like buy these types of products, which means that maybe your client is going to have to like put you on pause for a little bit, or they're going to have to discontinue something because maybe it was culturally insensitive. And if you don't have that context, it's not going to make sense. So getting that information and getting that education now to help open your mind to that throughout your career will only be of benefit to you. And I'm saying that as somebody who used to feel like, ew, business gross. And now I'm like, I need to know because it is going to affect myself and my team and my clients. And I need to know how so that I can be prepared for it.
Great answer. I mean, how else can you be a business critical partner to your client if you don't understand their business or any business? So I agree with you. So that's why we'll keep all these classes as requirements.
Please do. Please do. Sorry guys. Sorry.
No, it's great. All right, we're pretty much at time here, and man, this time has flown by. And as always, really enjoy interacting with you, and I know our webinar participants have. And Pilar, I just want to thank you for being here with us and sharing your wealth of experience and wisdom. And we know you will continue to inspire and do incredibly well. And we're very glad to be part of your network and continue being in touch with you. Fight on.
It's always such a pleasure to hear Pilar speak. She's incredibly thoughtful and insightful. And I think most importantly, she's relevant, not only to students or people starting out in the industry, but even to the most seasoned PR executives. Many thanks to BT and Pilar for arranging this conversation. Throughout the next few weeks, we'll be featuring a few more discussions from Prism. As always, thank you for tuning in to PR Future, a student production of the USC Annenberg Center for PR. Today's episode was produced by Marshall Winfield. The executive producer is Ron Antonette. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you stream your favorite shows. Tune in next time for more insights from the world of PR. And in the meantime, happy holidays from everybody here at the USC Center for Public Relations.